Hello and welcome to the RetroTech 120p challenge, and we're playing Thundercross 2, a shoot-'em-up by Konami that came out in 1991. Something to observe here as we leave the confines of the spaceship. We seem to be coming from a green gas giant, and we end up shooting stuff on Earth. Are we attacking Earth? One to ponder. Probably not. So this is Thundercross 2, as I said. It came out on the Switch and the PlayStation 4 a lot later on, some 40 years after it initially came out in the arcades. No, not a particularly popular arcade. I think it was like 15th in the all-time 15th in the month's releases in Japan when it came out. As you can see, fairly unremarkable to look at. It's one of those games that's got those really boring geometric shaped villains in it, like you used to get on the Commodore 64, the Spectrum and the Amiga and that, not very creative. It's not particularly a visual game. Hitting those gold squares will eventually bear you fruit in terms of power-ups and things, and the power-ups in this are pretty good. You can end up with 4 of those ordnance bits around you and some pretty hardcore weapons, as you can see from my little shuriken-y thing here. This is the RetroTech 120p challenge. In it, you get to practice as many times as you like. It can be once, like I did. It can be no times, like a proper champ would do. And it could be 152 times. Just get your recorded run in by the end of the week. Once you press record, it's just those 2 credits. Then you got to stop recording, Sonny Jim, and get yourself to Mars. Sorry, I've got that confused, that last bit, with the storyline to Total Recall. I don't know really what to say much more about this game. It is just what it is. It's a straightforward shoot 'em up. It's a little bit tricky, and it really does punish you if you get killed at any point. It's one of those ones where if you lose all your power-ups, you're in a bit stuck, son. A bit like R-Type and things like that. I do like the bosses in this game, though. They've got these really cool, these decent little patterns that they do that are pretty simple, but they make you feel all badass, and you'll see why in a minute, because this bit's pretty good, because you just sort of go round it several times. There's a little snaky bit. It tries to hit you with its bell end. But once you hit it enough, which I'll do in a minute, it then changes its attack pattern, as all good bosses should do in these games. As we approach, was it dusk, I guess? In this above Earth, I'm presuming it's Earth, as I say. So yeah, this is where it changes, and you have to hit the little crystal in the middle. Now it pings out these big giant arms, and you can either go around it like you did before and avoid the arms, or you can be a total badass pilot and go right under its armpit and twitch your way across, blasting away under its armpit like you're a crying toddler at bedtime in its mother's embrace. It's pretty Partridgian, isn't it? I've got to embrace that, I think at some stage. I'm destined to be an even less successful form of Alan Partridge, but I'll deal with that. So that's the first boss done. I look like a proper champ after that first level, but as I say, all you need is one hit, and it all can go wrong for you. So as we enter stage 2, and yet more space-bound chicanery, let's talk about this week's genital fact of the week. This is one of those ones where it's really tricky to do. I can't do an animal because there's no animals in it, and I've played about 50 space shooters at this point. So what do? Well, I've decided to go with the airborne aspect of this game and talk about the Mile High Club. I'm sure you're all aware of that. Is where the practice of when a passenger, a pilot, or a member of the cabin crew decides to get jiggy with another member of the cabin crew, the pilot, or a passenger, whatever they fancy really, as long as they are a mile up. That is one of the qualifiers to be part of the Mile High Club. You have to be a mile up. You can't do it off takeoff, otherwise that's cheating. What else can I tell you about it? Well, there is a lot to talk about, because actually it was invented about the same time as the autopilot. There was a chap called Lawrence Burst Sperry. Even that sounds quite sexual, doesn't it? That was his name, though. They always burst your Sperry all over a girl's face. He invented the autopilot. Yes, he invented the autopilot. So he could do different things instead of just flying the plane. So he could, go off and have a poo, maybe. I don't know how you do a poo in an old pre-war plane. I guess you can't really poo out the window, can you? You'd be sucked out. We'll get rid of it, I suppose. But yes, apparently he was not only did he invent the autopilot, he was also the inaugural member of the Mile High Club, because what he did was he took a young female socialite, the sort you'd see in The Great Gatsby or something, and took her on the plane to teach her how to fly the plane. And they crashed because he knocked the old autopilot off with his foot while doing other stuff. And they crashed. They didn't die. He got to still keep the plaudits of being the first guy to shag in the air like a seagull. So yeah, that's history for you. 3% of pilots have apparently also followed the example of Mr. Sperry by engaging in the Mile High Club. So if you're afraid of flying, just remember there is a 3% chance that your pilot is completely distracted by a lady's vagine. I mean, they probably don't do it every time. But still, it makes you worry, doesn't it? Probably take a boat. Actually, I bet all the captains are doing it as well. So yeah, that was the reason I've got that information. It was a study by Sensi's Condoms. I thought they just did football games and cannon fodder, but never mind. Apparently, it's an interesting experience. By the way, as I'm getting thrusted by a robot evil man with his sort of phallus there. So yeah, it makes you come harder due to the thin oxygen. Now, starving yourself of oxygen is obviously something we know that makes you feel better when you're engaging in self-love. Just ask Mr. Hutchins and Mr. Carradine, who both died, putting it all on the line because that nut was so good. All of it, even like post-coital shame. They're going to be found having masturbated themselves to death, but they still took that risk, these celebrities. And, well, here you go. Must be good. British cabin staff, apparently, are the most lusty of the Mile High Club, followed by the Australians, the Germans, the French and the Brazilians. Again, something Britain can be really proud of, that we cannot wait to get to a bed. We'll do it in midair, in a toilet. We're so classy. I've already covered that. So Singapore Airlines had to ban the Mile High Club because basically their deluxe double bed suites were getting all a bit jizzy. So they had to put it strictly into the contract that you shouldn't be able to do it. There's my first credit gone. But if you do fancy joining the Mile High Club, there are legal passageways to do it. Flamingo Air from Cincinnati encourage it at $425 a pop. Literally a pop, I guess. And also, if you wanted to try out in Australia, there's actually an Australian airline called Erotic Airlines, which, is not subtle, is it, really, there? But, you have to take these routes because if you do it in Britain, in the airs above Britain, you could potentially get charged with indecent exposure and get yourself 6 months in prison, which would be horrible, wouldn't it? And you might get more love, but this time in prison, and it'll go in your prison pocket, and you don't want that. So there's that. But in America, it's even worse. You could get arrested if you do the Hunker Chunker in American airspace. You could get arrested and be sent down for 20 years for doing that. 20 years. It's like you've murdered someone, when in fact you've actually done the opposite and nearly brought someone into the world. According to Tom Hanks, the Skyway gondola in Disneyland, which, you know, I guess isn't a plane, it's more of a seat, like one of those seats you get, a ski lift seat. Apparently, one of the reasons they got rid of that, apart from the fact it wasn't very safe, was because teenagers were copping off on it, and kids were looking up and going, "Oh, mummy, there's some jizz coming down from the air." Not they know what jizz is, but yeah, they got rid of that in the 80s, which was probably wise. But yeah, my go's nearly over on this. I think with a bit of practice, it's one of those games I think that does reward a bit of practice. So expect to see some lengthy runs later on in the week. But it's always good to get in there early, you know, just to show off your skills, as it were. And as long as you can avoid finishing last. So here we go. Here's the pneumatic drill that ends my turn. And I'd like to wish you goodbye and say to you, please come back. I'm normally a lot worse at games. And, well, sometimes better at games, should I say. And Kay, thanks and bye. Also, join the challenge.